The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
I'd like to welcome you back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. I'd also like to welcome myself back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. Been out for a while, was in Europe for a couple of weeks. A lot going on with me, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Jon's reporting, insights on the Minnesota Timberwolves and the NBA, and we have a lot to get to. I want to talk about LeBron James, other power forwards the Wolves might be interested in, what they're going to do with that position. And Jon has a great topic we're going to get to later, the Jaylen Brown deal. And Jaylen Brown's perceived value in contrast with his very large salary and what he commands, and how that might reflect on the history of the cat trade, which is going to be really good stuff. We'll talk about, and Jon's in Las Vegas, so we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Summer League, and I certainly want to talk about Baron J and Zikarsky. So let's get to it here. By the way, we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we are brought to you by Lexus of Wayzata in Maplewood, and we'll also have a Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com later in the show, probably to end the show. All right, Jon. So I know you love Vegas. Tell me just how you've been ripping it up out there, man.
Yeah, just landed not too long ago. We're recording this on Tuesday. Have some meetings coming up this week, but it is 105 degrees. And so we're ready to go in this thing. I'm looking forward to Summer League, just watching kind of some of the young guys with the Wolves. We will also see kind of some of the new or the established faces for the Wolves come through here. I would expect to see Ant at some point this weekend. I think the LaMelo Ball trade may not be finalized exactly in the next 24, 40 hours, but that's getting worked out now and getting done. And so a lot of the kind of eventful stuff that you missed while you were gone, a lot of things happen. We're going to start seeing it come to fruition here and actually see the team start to be able to discuss those things in earnest, which is going to be good to see.
And we should highlight, in case somebody is just new to the show, which is unlikely, but it happens. Tell me about the last couple episodes. Looks like you had great guests and co-hosts on.
Yeah, so we had Dane Moore on 2 weeks ago, on the day of the LaMelo Ball trade, and we got deep into what it meant and kind of reacting sort of on the fly to a huge deal that went down, and that was a great conversation. And then, in the aftermath of the Ball trade, of course, a lot of Wolves fans are really sad to see Naz Reid go, rightfully so, and everything that he meant. And then I think they looked at LaMelo Ball and said, gosh, this is what we're getting back for our favorite guy, this sort of, knucklehead, young guy who's just out there shooting one-legged threes from 30 feet. And does he really take this seriously? And so I brought on Miran Fader last week, my colleague at The Athletic, and no one has spent more time around LaMelo Ball than Miran. She went to Lithuania to see him. She went to Australia to see him as well, and to spend a ton of time around LaMelo, really knows him and has had real conversations with him. And so she really gave us a good idea and a great conversation about who this guy is, maybe what some of the misperceptions are around him. And so I just thought that was really valuable context for the Wolves fans who are trying to digest what exactly they are getting in LaMelo Ball. And so if you missed that show, definitely go back and check that one out, because there's some really good details, some really good perspective on LaMelo Ball, the person, and maybe some of the unfair or inaccurate portrayals of him to this point in his career.
This, of course, is a podcast. Also, make sure you watch us on YouTube and follow the Jon Krawczynski Show on Instagram and Facebook so you see each episode as it's released. And check out the other great shows at TalkNorth.com, including Chin Music, Michael Russo and Anthony Panto on hockey, Dawn Mitchell, Mark Rosen, Jeff Diamond, Alec Lewis. We have a great lineup. Check it all out. All right, let's get to it. We might circle back and talk a little about ball, but it's time to talk about LeBron James. And just tell me what you're hearing. Tell me what you're thinking about the possibility of LeBron James actually choosing the Timberwolves over the rest of the NBA, which is something we could not have even speculated about or joked about a couple years ago.
Yeah, so we're recording this on Tuesday at evening, and so there's certainly any possibility that something happens here tonight, tomorrow, whenever, to change things. But I would say that as things stand right now, one, it seems to be the perception around the league that LeBron is going to take his time with this decision, and he's going to kind of go through all of the options, talk things over with Rich Paul and his camp, and just kind of really try to get a handle on what the best situation is for him. And as things stand today, the Timberwolves are very much in the mix for LeBron James. You're talking about Cleveland, Golden State, Miami, Philadelphia, the Wolves. I might be missing one more, but I don't think so. I think those are kind of the main ones that are being talked about in the LeBron James sweepstakes. And it's funny because on Tuesday morning, we at The Athletic did a little roundtable discussion with writers who are kind of close with all of those teams to try and handicap what the odds are of LeBron James coming to the team that, we each cover. And it was interesting that I think most of us really did have the kind of position that, yeah, this is a long shot. Like, we don't know what LeBron is going to do, and it's probably not going to be here, meaning Minnesota. The Minnesota writer said, long shot to be with the Wolves. The Philadelphia writer said, long shot to be with the Sixers, Heat, Cavs, Warriors. They're all kind of just sitting back and waiting. And I think the more time that goes by in this situation, I think each organization probably feels a little bit pessimistic about it. But I would say, like, to my estimation, and this is not like informed from anything that I'm hearing from the LeBron side at all, but if I'm just looking at this through a logical lens, I think the longer that this drags out, the better the Timberwolves' chances become. Because if you think about what LeBron has to process and has to consider, it is fair to say of all of the teams left, Minnesota is probably the most surprising one. Cold winters, no history of winning, a lot of things that go into it that just think, why would the Timberwolves be in the hunt? Now, they have a great case to make, if you ask me, with basketball fit, with Ant and LaMelo and Rudy and Jaden and Io and everyone, Chris Finch, Tim Connolly. Like, I think that they have really thrown the kitchen sink at LeBron and just said, we are here for you. We think this is the best place for you to come and win if you want to win a championship. And I do think that's gotten LeBron James' attention. But if we just go through the other options, like Philadelphia got Jaylen Brown in a blockbuster trade, and they have Maxey, who is a clutch client. You have Embiid if he can stay healthy. They have a really good young team, a good team to put around James, and they just made this blockbuster trade. Hey, we have Jaylen Brown, like, come on in, we need you, let's go. Golden State, Steph and Draymond obviously would be an incredible story for LeBron to link up with those guys, even if they're a little older. I mean, certainly I think that it's fair to say that LeBron would love to play with Steph for a year. And that's a pretty straightforward thing. Do I want to play with him? Do I not? Cleveland, do I want to go back home again? Like, that's obviously straightforward. Miami, he knows front and back he's been there before. Like, does he want to team with Giannis and Bam? Like, all of those kind of situations are pretty, like, straightforward. You look at it and you say, okay, I either want this or I don't want this. With the Wolves, there's a lot more unknowns for LeBron. He probably has to think more about, is the entire team ready? Do I want to live there in the winter? What do I know about Chris Finch? What do I know about Tim Connolly? All of these things. There's a lot more for him to kind of mull over. And so could I see a scenario where he keeps looking at what he wants and he keeps seeing that the Wolves check a lot of those boxes, and maybe he's just like thinking, shoot, like maybe it is the Wolves. And so he's taken more time to look into it. I know that Alex Rodriguez, I know that LeBron James thinks highly of Alex and things like that. So I think that factors in. And so this is just my complete speculation and conjecture, but I do think that the longer this goes out, at least I think that it means that the Wolves are still in the running, and that maybe LeBron is really just trying to think to himself, can I really play in Minnesota for a year or two? And so we'll see how it all plays out, but that's just my gut feeling on it right now, Jim.
And you said a year or two, because there have been hints that this would be it and that LeBron's going to hook up with Netflix and do a final year. You really think there's a chance of him playing more than 1 year?
So some of the reporting from people who are more connected to LeBron than myself are indicating that that's at least a possibility. And I think Rich Paul on his podcast did say, hey, no one said this is it yet. And so they're at least leaving the door open for it to be a 2-year thing. It's possible. And when you think about it, if he stays if he goes for 2 years, 2 more years, that's 25 years in the NBA. That's a very symbolic number, right? It's a quarter of a century. And so could that mean that LeBron wants to stay 1 more year somewhere and go chase a title and then maybe go back home to Cleveland for year 25? I don't know. Could he stay in one place for 2 more years? Yes, he could. Could this be the last year? It absolutely could. But I just think that from reading and listening to people who are pretty well connected there, I just don't think that you can rule out that this is going to be more than a 1-year thing at this point. And so I'm just not kind of going to say that, yeah, this is it. This is the last dance. And we all know, Jim, it would be easy for Netflix to say, yeah, we'll take 2 years of LeBron footage. We'll sign up for that as well. So I think anything is on the table in that regard right now.
Wow. All right, let's get into a little more LeBron and what they do at power forward, if anything, if they don't get LeBron. We do want to thank Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius, your independent authorized Connecticut dealer. Are you ready for the worry-free water your family deserves? This summer, trade in your old water softener and trade up to a Connecticut system. Say goodbye to hard water, rust stains, and contaminants, and hello to worry-free water and an additional $500 off on top of our summer sale pricing. Schedule your free water test today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And here's John for Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
You know what I've learned as a bald guy, John?
What's that?
Haircuts are even more important when you're bald than when you have a good head of hair. When I was young and I had just massive amounts of hair, it could be a little sloppy. You don't have much hair, you can't have much slop. I sound like Larry David because I look like Larry David when I take off my hat. So I'm going to go to Great Clips here soon, get it cleaned up. Here's more on Great Clips.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, Jim, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why I use Clip Notes to save my haircut details. I was just there yesterday at Great Clips before coming out here to Vegas. And so no matter which stylist I see or Great Clips salon I visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of me. So do yourself a favor, say goodbye to guesswork, and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today, Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Reminder, John's show is one of our most popular, TalkNorth.com. He does a great job not only building an audience, but engaging with an audience. If you want to access that by sponsoring or advertising with the show, you can reach our great Vice President of Business Development, Tammy Henderson at thenderson@talknorth.com. So any more to talk about in terms of LeBron specifically, or should we talk about the position of power forward?
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap a bow on it, I think to your point at the start of the conversation, I know some people might roll their eyes at this, but I do think it's significant that the Wolves are in this conversation. That when you think 3, 4, 5, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, the odds of the Timberwolves ever being on the table for LeBron James when he's talking strictly about, can I win at a high level? And the answer is yes. And you say the Timberwolves, like, it's remarkable to see the progress that this organization has gone through over the last several years here now. I mean, they have put themselves on really strong footing with Anthony Edwards, with this ownership group, with Tim Connolly and Chris Finch, with the success that they've had in the playoffs. And I just, it's light years ahead of where it was. And so I do think that it is absolutely a significant thing that they are even just in this conversation for LeBron James right now.
Yeah, it's a blast. It's fun. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to argue about. I will say this. He should come to Minnesota. He should wear number 34.
Ooh.
To say,
Yes.
I'm going to be the next Kirby Puckett. I'm going to be the next star athlete who brings a championship to Minnesota. And it would just, the basketball would be incredible. I know LeBron has critics. He has doubters, detractors. Everybody does. But, with LeBron, there's always like this kind of nagging criticism that kind of follows him around. He's a genius. He's a genius basketball player. He's an incredible physical specimen. He works like crazy. I think watching him with this group would be fascinating and incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, and I think that is honestly, Jim, one of the best arguments the Wolves are making right now is that LeBron, like, we still really need you. Like, you're not going to be riding coattails here. Like, if you were, like, he's not going to San Antonio anymore. Or Rich Paul said, like, if New York hadn't won the title, LeBron would go to New York because that is an amazing story. Well, here, if he were to come here, this team and this organization needs his gifts physically, needs his leadership, needs his basketball IQ, needs all of that. And yet they also have enough to insulate him where he doesn't have to expend a ton of energy in the regular season, and he can save a lot of his bullets for the playoffs. And so if you look at him coming to a place and that where he is needed, but that can also kind of help him, I just think that Minnesota has all of the right pieces for that. And to your point about 34, like, you win the first men's title here since Kirby Puckett did it. Like, that is as big of a statement you can make toward Michael Jordan as anything. Like, you would have a legendary title in Cleveland. You would have a legendary title in Minnesota, in addition to what you did with Miami with the back-to-back and then with the Lakers in the bubble. Like, that is a really, really compelling resume for saying, I am the greatest to ever do it. Like, those are enduring championships that would stand the test of time. And so I think for all of those reasons, that's got to be why the Wolves are still in this hunt right now.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, if they don't get LeBron, do they stand pat? Do they go small? Or is somebody else you think could either emerge on the market or within the roster?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to hit at here. First of all, I do understand that Wolves fans are nervous about the lack of true power forwards on the roster. They signed Trey Lyles just last week, but he is not like a sustainable starting answer for them at power forward. And I get a lot of questions on Twitter. What about Kevin Love? What about this guy? What about that guy? And I will tell you, like, most of the available players out there are role players at best. Like, they're not going to be the guy who comes in and starts for a team that is going to be contending for another deep playoff run. Because whether LeBron comes or not, the Wolves are going to start this season with designs on making another deep playoff run. And so if they do not get LeBron, there is a chance that they go and sign another depth player, maybe it's Gershon Yabusele. Maybe it's like someone like that can come in and give them some minutes off of the bench. But I do think that the more like, or the scenario that is playing out in front of us right now is that if they miss out on him, you're going to see Jaden McDaniels at the 4. You're going to see Terrence Shannon Jr. or Jalen Clark or Io at the 3. And they're going to kind of go a little bit smaller. You look at what San Antonio was able to do, going a little smaller. New York went, OG Anunoby's a big 4, but like still not like overpowering that way. And so like there is precedent for going that way. But the other part I would remind people is much like when they started the season in 2022 with D'Angelo Russell at point guard because they couldn't find a deal for him. Like, and then they made the Mike Conley trade in the middle of the season. Like, they are still allowed to make deals long after the summer is over. And so I could see the scenario where they start with Jaden at the 4, go that way, and then wait until December, January, when other teams kind of really decide who they are and what they need and what they don't. And maybe, another more prototypical power forward does become available via trade that Tim Connolly can go get. Maybe Josh Green's expiring salary becomes a little bit more attractive for a team to take on at the midway point of the season versus right now, because I don't think that there's been a whole lot of suitors lining up to take Green's salary to open up a little bit more flexibility for the Wolves. And so I just think like roster construction is a year-round thing. And yes, other teams are signing Rui Hachimura and signing all of these other power forwards to bigger deals that the Wolves were not going to be able to do. It does not mean they are sunk. It does not mean that they are going to be without options. It just means that some of those options may take a longer time to unfold. And so I just think that it will require a little bit of patience. The other part about the 4 of Jaden at the 4, and I know a lot of Wolves fans are nervous about him guarding 4s and not guarding the point of attack. Well, guess what, guys? He can still guard the point of attack. And then you can have Anthony Edwards guard the 4. You can have Terrence Shannon Jr. guard the 4. I really think he's big enough and strong enough to do that for most teams, most opponents. You can have Jalen Clark can guard the 4. They have versatility and options out there. There are going to be a couple of nights a year where the other team is just so big and so strong that they're going to have a hard time matching up. But by and large, I think they'll be okay for the most part. And maybe they have a little bit more offense with LaMelo out there. LaMelo is a big guard. He can rebound a little bit more than you're used to getting from that spot. And so I would be concerned a little bit about the depth just in terms of if Jaden gets hurt or something like that. But I am not as concerned about them not having the, Karl Malone style 4 to be right next to Rudy there. I think that can materialize over time, or they can find other ways to figure out to work around that.
Let's talk about Jalen Brown and Cat, and let's also just talk about the Summer League since you're in Vegas right now. We do want to thank TSR Injury Law, our friend Steve Terry. I just texted with him the other day. We need to get him on a show here sometime soon when things are quiet and we can have some fun, hearing his fan perspective. But the most important thing for you is to realize if you ever are injured, call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. Steve and his associates will take good care of you. 612-TSR-TIME. Thanks also to True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. If you go down and see the good people at True Vision, I'm 2 years now into LASIK surgery from True Vision. I still see great. My life is just so much more open and less complicated by having LASIK surgery, not having to deal with contacts, not having to deal with glasses. I notice it the most when I'm on the road like I am right now in Las Vegas, and I just don't have to worry about, do I have my contact solution? Did I bring the glasses with? Do I forget them? What's going on with that? Can I, if I've taken a shower on the road and I have my glasses off, I can see which bottle is shampoo and which is conditioner right now. My life is just so much easier with True Vision. And as I've told you before, the people of True Vision are so warm, so welcoming. You just will be welcomed with open arms and educated on the process and taken through it from the first step to the last, and you'll feel great about it. So go to chewvision.com to set up your free consultation. Tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you. Chew Vision Institute in Bloomington.
It's been a blast to be aligned with sglambshops.com. What's going on with one of our favorite companies?
Yeah, if you go to sglambshops.com, use the promo code JONK20. It's 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. They have unbelievable shorts, t-shirts, hoodies, pants, sweaters, hats, like all ultra high quality stuff. You put on a Lamb Chops piece of clothing and you know it's going to last you a very long time and you're going to look good in it for a very long time. We are going to be having some announcements about some live shows coming up, and Lamb Chops is going to be a part of that as well. We got a cool collaboration that we'll talk more about as we get on with it. But for now, go to sglambchops.com, put in the promo code JONK20 and get 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
We'll also do a Twitter question at the end of the show, sponsored by sglambshops.com. All right. You and I were talking before, and the Jalen Clark trade is absolutely fascinating on all kinds of fronts. But as somebody who's, covered the Cat trade, what thoughts arose in your mind when you saw the Jaylen Brown deal?
Yeah, I mean, I know that, right after the Wolves traded Cat for Randall DiVincenzo in the pick, of course, there was a lot of hand-wringing about the deal, about the decision, especially coming off of a Western Conference Finals run. And what was clear at that moment is that we were sort of ushering into a new financial landscape in the NBA that was going to be designed to distribute the talent around the league in a much more aggressive way. And so because the new collective bargaining agreement was adopted right after the Wolves made the Rudy Gobert trade, the Wolves were up against those apron issues a lot sooner than a lot of teams were. And so they made their trade for the Karl-Anthony Towns trade on the front end of that. And of course, it looks pretty bad once Cat goes to New York and wins a championship. But what I said at the time, and what we are starting to see more and more of, is that teams are starting to make real tough decisions about the top part of their roster. And we saw it this time with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're both max contract guys. Jaylen Brown had an unbelievable season last year, was, I think, top 6 in the MVP voting, helped a team that was incredibly undermanned without Jason Tatum still win 56 games and get to the playoffs. And in a year when a lot of people expected them to miss it entirely without Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown played amazing. I don't want to hear any of the analytic arguments. He wins. He wins at a high level. And so, but with Jason Tatum coming back fully healthy and with the Celtics pushing up into the second apron territory, they had a decision to make. And they were parting with Jaylen Brown in part to reconfigure their salary cap sheet years down the road so they didn't continually come up against these luxury tax penalties, against these restrictions on deal making that are for teams above the first and second aprons. It's just designed to be a hard salary cap. And I know that Paul George still makes a lot of money too. I understand that, but his contract is shorter. And so they made this move, even though I don't agree with the trade at all, and I think it was a bad trade. Like, they made a move in large part because they are being forced to make that move. And the Wolves made a move because they were forced to make a move. Now, I think they got a lot more from the Knicks than the Sixers got from the Celtics, or the Celtics got from the Sixers, certainly. But you're going to see more and more of these teams make these decisions. Kawhi Leonard going to Toronto. I think Cleveland will have to make some decisions soon with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. Like, it is all designed now to be more like the NFL, where you have basically the quarterback who stays, and then the personnel around them changes regularly. And so this is the new era of basketball in the NBA, and So the Wolves paid the price on the front end of it. Now other teams are paying it, and the Celtics are just the latest with Jaylen Brown.
Fascinating stuff there. All right, you're in Vegas. I'm interested in Berenger and his continued development. I'm interested in Zacharski. Tell me about them, and then tell me if there's anybody else Wolves fans should really be paying close attention to this summer.
Yeah, so it'll be really exciting to see Berenger and Zacharski. Berenger, especially with the moves that have been made, he's going to play next season. Like, one of the reasons they traded both Julius Randle and Naz Reid was they felt like they could not afford to have Johan Berenger just sitting on the bench for another season. They have to get him out there and get him playing. And so he's been working incredibly hard in the summertime. The Wolves are incredibly high on his potential and what they've seen from him in workouts, athletically, kind of ball handling, those types of things. And he is going to play a lot in this summer league next to Rocco Zacharski. And that is really interesting because Berenger right now is a center. He's not a shooter at all. He doesn't stretch the floor, but he is also like 6'10". He's not 7'2", and I think that there is a world that the Wolves are clearly exploring with this of having Berenger at the 4 and then having a stretch big man next to him. Obviously, you don't do that with Rudy this year, but you have to be looking forward to the future without Rudy whenever that happens. And so then if you're really high on Berenger, it's like, how do you figure out how to configure a roster around him? Well, maybe it's adding a stretch big like Rocco, who does shoot the 3. He's not Cat as a shooter, but he can shoot it, mid to high 30s, I think, from behind the line. And so watching how those two play together is going to be really telling on Berenger's potential as a versatile kind of 4 or 5 type of a player. One thing to note about this is everyone is excited about him playing the 4. He is only playing the 4 on defense. On offense, he is going to be the 5. Zacharski is going to be the one that's spread out behind the perimeter, like stretching the defense out with his shooting. He'll probably be in the corner, shooting corner threes, things like that. Berenger will be in the paint and around the rim a lot on offense. He'll be the 5. On defense, then, Berenger will be the 4, and that'll be a challenge for him to come out, of the paint, to guard on the perimeter, to guard pick and roll a little bit more, to be more mobile. And so seeing how he handles all of those responsibilities, I think will be just fascinating to watch. Zacharski, I think if he plays well, he has a chance to really make an impression and maybe shoehorn himself into a few minutes more in the regular season than he currently is slated. I think he's still got a lot of developing to do, but the Wolves just love his size. He's like 7'3", 7'4". He told us on the show at the jersey unveiling that he went and looked Wemby in the eye just to see how tall he really was, and so he's going to get a chance to make an impression. Now, I still think he's at least a year away, but we'll see how all that goes. But watching those two and how they work together, they've developed a really good friendship. That's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. And the final player I'm really watching, Jim, is Zion Pullen. He's a point guard, and really, you talk to people behind the scenes about him and about what he brings to the table, and you just kind of who's catching your eye, and it's, hey, Zion Pullen. They love his physicality, they love his shot making, they like he got just a cup of coffee up with the Timberwolves last year, played in a few garbage minutes here and there, and they just really like how he attacks it. They like how he thinks the game, and so there's some real intrigue with Zion Pullen about his future, and it could be more than just an Iowa stint. It could be, you're looking at other options at point guard down the road as a backup or something like that. Zion Pullen has an opportunity to kind of keep climbing that ladder, so that's another name to watch.
Interesting. As we went through the show, I started thinking about LeBron and what he could bring to the team. And one really simple thing he would bring to the team is depth. I mean, if your starting lineup is Ball, Edwards, McDaniels, LeBron, and Rudy, Now all of a sudden your bench includes Io and Dante and Shannon and Clark and Berenger and Zakarsky, and all of a sudden you're pretty deep.
For sure. It's definitely like a pitching rotation, right, Jim?
Mhm.
Like when you get someone at the top or, in your 1 or 2 spot, now you're not asking a guy down further to do more than he's capable of doing. And everyone just kind of finds their level a lot easier. And so, yeah, they can get by, and I think they can have success without LeBron. But if you do have LeBron, it just, all of the pieces click into place a lot easier, and you become really formidable kind of as a group when you can get into like 9 deep of really quality players and maybe even 10. And that's how you look at it and you say, there's a lot of possibilities with a roster like that. It just makes you kind of lick your chops a little bit and think so. I mean, it would be amazing to cover him for a number of reasons, but number one with a bullet is what the possibilities for contention that it would open with him there.
Yes. And I can't remember exactly. It seems like Edwards and LeBron had a really good relationship on the U.S. team, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, LeBron loves Ant, really knows him well, and has long been an admirer of his game. Right away, like, at the start of Ant's career, like he was kind of a clutch guy and and really in with that group. Then he moved over to WME, like as he really established himself. But they've had a long connection, and so for LeBron, I do think like playing with him, like if he's thinking about, can I enjoy myself for a year? I think he looks at Anthony Edwards and said it would be a lot of fun to play with him. And I also do think that he has to be thinking about his ability to help Ant take one final step. Like, he to just get that little bit extra in kind of the way he looks at the game, approach, maturity, like those types of things. What he could do for Ant and LaMelo, but particularly Ant, I think it has to at least be intriguing to him if he's really considering the Wolves.
Here's my pitch.
Okay.
I mean, Minnesota, we should want LeBron to come to Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
It would be a great thing for our self-esteem, as well as the basketball team. Finish the Skyway. Make it so you can walk from Spoon and Stable or Mesa Margot or J.D. Hoyt's or any of the joints in North Loop to Target Center and back at anytime you want. Make it an adult playground and maybe even build LeBron his own tunnel underground where he can just go anywhere he wants without having to get cold.
It sounds like a great idea. I love the idea, Jim. They better start digging.
You didn't say practical.
Yeah, I was going to say, they better start digging and constructing right now just in case he says yes. And then, I'm sure Ant and LaMelo and all those other guys would appreciate it too. So if you get bad news from LeBron, you still have this to market to any other star that wants to come around. But yeah, I would give it a real shot for sure. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You end up with even more connections to downtown like that these guys can use. I see no downside.
I agree. Okay, well, that's settled. All right, let's get to our Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com.
Yeah, here, this one comes from Jason Gaddis. Obviously, with Ant LaMelo being the best players, many pundits have said there might be maturity issues that have been exacerbated by losing some veterans like Mike Conley and Kyle Anderson and those guys. Ant Melo need to take leadership roles, but who will really take the bulk of that aside for them, Rudy or a new signing? So it's a really good question because we have seen Mike Conley leave for Boston. Joe Ingles has retired. Kyle Anderson is in Toronto. And so all of the sort of Yoda-like veterans on the team, the guys who had Ant's ear, the guys who had Jaden's ear, Terrence Shannon Jr., those guys are gone. Rudy is a very good leader in terms of leading by example and going, here's what I do, here are my habits. But I don't know that he's necessarily as much of a vocal kind of presence in that locker room. And so my answer, outside of LeBron, if he does not come, obviously, my answer is it's Anthony Edwards. He's going into year 7 now. He is 25 years old, and he's still young on the side of his prime, but he has been in the league a long time. He has taken a lot of steps in the right direction from a leadership standpoint. I wrote extensively after the season about how he played through injuries in the playoffs and how he took better care of his body. And like, those are steps of leadership as well for him to do those things. And I do think he was starting to use his voice a little bit more as well. But now without the kind of adults in the room, it's time for Ant to be the adult. And LaMelo's going to be new on the scene. And so I think that the best case scenario is he is just able to come in, play basketball, get acclimated, and not have to worry necessarily about using his voice in any way other than just for like being a good teammate. This is Ant's team. Like, it's never been more Ant's team than it is right now. And so I think that you can look at him and say, all right, young man, it is time. That's your next step. Every summer you take a step in something, whether it's, scoring at the rim, catch and shoot threes, all sorts of different things he's added to his game. This next year going into it, I think it's setting that good example and setting that tone every single night, bringing it every single night, and being able to grab people by the scruff of their neck sometimes and tell them to straighten up, or putting an arm around them and saying, hey, keep it going, whatever it takes. From that leadership standpoint, these guys want to be led by Ant. Like, he is so charismatic. He is such a good dude. They all know that he really cares about them, that he wants to see them do well. But now it's time for him to take that final step and be the real vocal leader of this group. And I think he's capable of doing that.
Good stuff. Good question. Good answer. Thanks to everyone who listens. Thanks to everyone who watches. We really do appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Jon is going to be in. How long are you in summer league?
I would hear right about through the week through Friday, get home for the USA Cup soccer tournament, see my daughter play, do all that through the weekend. So if you're out and about in that heat in Blaine, come say hello.
Beautiful. Good stuff, Jon. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. We'll talk to you next week.